The issue of tomos and autocephaly goes far beyond church life. That's why the authorities joined to resolve this issue. It's a question of our independence. It's a question of our national security. It's a question of our statehood, and it's a question of world geopolitics.
It's the biggest split in the Orthodox Church for the past millennium. The Russian Orthodox Church announced last week it had severed all ties with the Ecumenical Patriarchate of Constantinople. It happened after its leader here in Istanbul recognized the independence of the Ukrainian Orthodox Church. The move came after years of growing tensions in Ukraine over the independence of its church, particularly in the wake of Russia's annexation of Crimea. For Russia, the split seems as much geopolitical as spiritual, and it argues that Ukraine is pushing the church to the brink of catastrophe. Well, to discuss this, I'm joined now from Kiev by Vasyl Filipchuk. He's the former spokesman for the Ukrainian Foreign Ministry. And in Belfast, we have Alexander Titov. He's a political analyst focusing on Russian foreign policy and history. Alexander, let me begin with you. Is this more about politics and far less about theology?
Yeah, I think that's right. And only I would add a caveat that it's about eternal Ukrainian politics rather than anything else, because essentially the whole issue of Tefekali is basically used by Poroshenko to give something to his electorate to help him win in the first round. And he's using the issue of church, decided to use the issue of church for that end.
Okay, so Vasyl, is Petro Poroshenko just using this for cynical political ends?
Well, there is no doubt in this. Very few people really question. The problem is different. First of all, Ukraine is a very complex country in terms of language or religion. I can just start from my own example. My parents are going to Ukrainian Orthodox Church of Kiev Patriarchate. My brother is going to Orthodox Church of Russian Patriarchate. My sister is going to Greek Catholic Church, and myself, I don't go to church, but if I need, I would go better to Catholic Church. And you know, it's never been any problem inside of my family or inside of the country. There was a big respect. There was no problem of using different religions. So basically, this artificial problem, which has been created by Ukrainian political elite now, may really lead to serious split, to serious difficulties in the country, as artificially state started to interfere into religious issues.
Okay, yeah, that's interesting.
It can really be...
That's interesting. Let me bring in Alexander here for a second. Yeah, Alexander, do you agree that rather than this creating more problems between Ukraine and Russia, it's going to create splits within Ukrainian society?
Well, I think you can't really create more splits between Ukraine and Russia than it's already the case. So yes, that's right. The main issue will be within the Ukrainian society, which, as absolutely rightly said, is very diverse, very complex. It's unfortunate that the president is trying to boost his electoral support by appealing to a relatively narrow nationalist electorate and using the issue of church to that end, which is not going to do him Ukraine any favors, because I mean, the last thing Ukraine needs is another conflict over a church, particularly if the newly established church would try to seize some property from the Ukrainian Orthodox Church of Moscow Patriarchate, and then it will really be dangerous and blood might flow.
Okay, so blood might flow. Vasyl, do you fear that blood might flow? There's already enough trouble in the Donbass. There's already trouble in Crimea, or at least an annexation and an unresolved element of Crimea. Might blood flow over this? Might people get that angry over this?
I hope not. I really pray every day not, but risks exist, and the risks are very serious, because religious issue is probably the only one single where people really feel it's something really holy is touching their soul. They don't really believe the state, which failed to fulfill its basic functions in terms of security, economic well-being, the state may interfere into religious issues. Basically, we understand why authorities are now promoting this issue, because corruption is not defeated, conflict is not settled, So to promote candidature for presidential elections, there should be something new. And if religion is taken, then people just feel, well, it's too far. The red line is crossed. So I hope that authorities really aware about all the risks, because there is nothing more, nothing bloodier than religious wars. We remember last millennium how many blood was because of religious wars, and I hope it will not be our case. But the game which has been launched is really very risky and very dangerous.
Yeah, Alexander, Moscow protesting. The Moscow Patriarch has forbidden their churches to have anything to do with Patriarch Bartholomew of the Constantinople Church. Beyond that, are we going to see Moscow do anything more?
Well, I think they have a range of options they can use, and they will probably use it. Basically, the Orthodox world, there's no single authority, and there's lots of councils and meetings and so forth. The Patriarch of Constantinople has been traditionally given the role of chairman or the leading figure there. Now the Moscow can start to challenge that and say that, hang on, no, we're not having that. So it will try to undermine his authority in the Orthodox world. It might do other things, such as, for example, opening. There's lots of Russians going to Turkey, which usually go to the Constantinople Patriarchate churches there. They might try to open Russian churches instead of a Moscow Patriarchate. They might, for example, try to instigate rebellion on the Mount Athos, which is a very important peninsula with many monasteries, again closely linked to Russia, but formerly under the Patriarchate of Constantinople. So yeah, there are lots of things they can do to undermine authority of the Patriarch of Constantinople.
Okay,
if they chose to.
Okay, so Vasil, as a former civil servant within the foreign ministry, as somebody who represented Ukraine and everything it meant to the outside world, what's your message to President Poroshenko?
Well, I think President has to care about what is his constitutional obligation. His constitutional obligation is foreign policy, defense, guarantee human rights, constitutional rights, and he should focus on what is in Constitution and not to interfere into church affairs, which are absolutely out of competence of any state authority. So I think that if you don't know what to do, just follow rule of law, follow constitution, follow legislation, and I think it's the only thing which should be done by Ukrainian authorities.
Okay, gentlemen, it's been really good dipping into this issue with both of you and getting a sense of where we are right now. It's been a pleasure. I hope to have you both on the program again, Alexander Titov and Vasil Filipchuk. For the moment, I have to move on. Thanks for joining us on the Newsmakers.